Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another DIY. So today I'm going to be showing you how to make headbands for yourself. I'm going to show you how to make 3 types of headbands. So first I cut my fabrics. I'm going to leave the dimensions in the description box, and then this is the irregular A4 paper that I used to cut the pattern for the bunny ears, and this is just how I did it. So if you don't have a curved ruler, you can just use your hands and just free draw. So you should just get something that looks similar to this kind of shape that I'm trying to draw here. Then after drawing, I just cut that using scissors. And after that, I transferred that pattern onto my fabric, and then I pinned it with some pins, and then I just cut it using a pair of scissors. So there I was just fixing to make sure that the right sides were facing each other. Then I pinned it down again, and then I proceeded to sew that on my sewing machine. Of course, when I saw that, I made sure that I left a small space which I was going to use to turn it inside out. And then I also sewed the rest of my pieces. So after sewing, I now started turning them inside out. I turned all my pieces inside out. And it's always easier to do this using a safety pin. I always use a safety pin for doing this kind of thing. ironed everything, I just pressed everything out and made sure that it was nice and flat. And then I went on to sew and close that gap that I used to turn it inside out. And then I measured 5 inches of elastic, which are now inserted into the smaller piece, and then I pinned it on the edges to make sure that the elastic does not get lost inside. And then I now joined the small piece and the big piece together, and then I sewed that on the sewing machine. And then I did this on both ends. It was kind of difficult to sew that on the sewing machine because there were so many layers of fabric. But anyway, this was good. Then I now tied the bunny ears. And there we have our first headband with the bunny ears. So for this next one, I cut my pieces and they were about 6 inches by 20 inches, and I cut 2 of these. But for the first headband I only cut 1, but for this one I cut 2. And I also cut the smaller piece 4 by 10 inches. So there I had already folded them in half and sewed on the edges. Then I now started turning them inside out. And then when I finished turning them inside out, I just pressed them out and made sure that they were all nice and flat. Then I now took 2 of the pieces and then I sort of crossed them at the middle, the way you see there, and then I pinned the edges. So they're kind of like crossing each other, something like that. Then I now put my smaller piece, which is the elastic band, and this time it was way too thick. I didn't even bother to try and sew it on my sewing machine because we were talking at about, I don't know, like more than 10 layers of fabric. So I just sewed it with my hands, and then making sure that I was tying knots. And then I also repeated the same thing for the other end. So for this third bow, I had a piece of fabric, a square, which was 4 by 6 inches. And then I also took some interfacing. I used the thin interfacing this time. I usually use that hard kind of interfacing in my previous videos, but for this particular DIY I used that regular thin interfacing. And then after ironing it, I just trimmed it on the edges like that. Then when I was done, I now started making my bow. I have like a lot of videos on how to make this bow. So all the videos that I've done in the past where I've made a bow before, I'm going to link them, and there are so many different kinds of ways for making this bow. You can choose to sew it if you want, if you don't want to glue, but for this particular DIY I just used my hot glue gun and I glued everything together. So I had to make sure that all the edges, all the raw edges were all hidden and tucked away. Then I cut this small piece of fabric, this tiny little piece of fabric, which I now then used to hold the bow together and give it that bow shape. And I also used some hot glue, and then I glued it right onto the middle of my bow. And then after that, I just now hot glued the bow onto my headband, which I had already made. So there are so many ways of doing this DIY, guys. There are so many. You can also put flowers if you want. You can hot glue some flowers there. Tomorrow I'm going to be showing you actually how to make another kind of flower. So thank you guys for watching this video. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you in my next DIY, which is going to be tomorrow. So I hope to see you again next time. If you are not yet subscribed to my channel,